Welcome into SportsZone All Access here on this Tuesday, February the 10th. We are already over a third of the way done with the month of February. And Ian, we know we got state tournaments starting this weekend with state wrestling duels in Pierre. Out in Mitchell is state gymnastics. So you know when that starts, it gets even busier, and you blink, and it is the Summit League tournament, and you blink, and then it's April. It's just how quick these next 6 weeks kind of just shoot right by.
Dare I say the tip of the iceberg coming up this week with...
It is. It is. It absolutely is. It is the start of super busy season for us. And with that being said, we still got our game of the weeks that we have coming to you, including a really good one coming up tonight. Number 1 versus number 3 in Class AA girls basketball. Brandon Valley, they've been the cream of the crop in Class AA this year, unbeaten. They've beaten O'Gorman. They've beaten some good teams. And they're going to play Washington tonight, 7 o'clock. We're going to preview that game coming up in a little bit. But first, we have a couple good stories for you that aired on Monday, and we're going to first start off by talking about a Super Bowl story. We kind of talked about it a little bit on Monday's show. Gray Zabel, I mean, what he did is pretty cool. You know, getting to go from an NDSU program with their winning success to now getting to go to the Seahawks and win the Super Bowl. Kelly Volk talked with a couple of peer football players and how they're reacting and feeling after one of their own won the Super Bowl.
South Dakota's capital city is still buzzing about Zabel and the Seahawks' Super Bowl success.
You still see 76 jerseys all over town.
Pierre junior Cooper Terwilliger plays football for the Governors, Zabel's high school team. Watching the Pierre natives' football journey and Super Bowl win is inspiring for Terwilliger.
You see him, all the hard work that he's put in throughout his years. It being accomplished and it being shown off at the highest level.
Other players on the team, including sophomore Jaron Deal, also feel that inspiration.
It inspires me a lot to just put in the work, and my goal is also to play college football like he did.
Terwilliger also wants to compete at the college level. Zabel's success is an example of the possibilities.
I was at his draft party this last year to see him get drafted in the first round. And then for him to go on and have an amazing year that he did and win a Super Bowl, it's something cool that you can see, because a guy, you know, that grew up in the same environment as you, that's a guy that's just like me in a way, do amazing things on the football field. It kind of just shows you that it can be done.
Shows you it can be done, and that's the cool part, right? Small town South Dakota, you call it that. Pierre, it's a pretty big town in the city compared to, you know, some of the populations in South Dakota. But you know, we talked about it on Monday, Ian. He was, you know, and the coolest part is when you watch that game back, the offensive and defensive lines were huge for the Seahawks. It's why they won the football game. I'm sorry to say, I know you're a Patriots fan, but you saw that too.
It's still a cool story.
Well, yeah, but you saw that too, that the trenches won the game for the Seahawks, which is impressive because the Patriots have good trenches too. But he was a part of those trenches that helped win the Super Bowl.
Certainly, and you see how important an offensive line is because of what the Seahawks defense was able to do to the Patriots offensive line, and that didn't happen on the other side. The Patriots defense, one of the best in the NFL, they were not able to get to the quarterback, and that's because of that offensive line with Zabel, one of those 5 up front, providing the protection for Sam Darnold and keeping a clean pocket, so important for quarterbacks at any level. And you see it on the biggest stage of the NFL, and just pretty cool now that 2 straight years a South Dakotan won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no question. You know, Dallas Goedert with the Eagles last year, and Gray Zabel this year. And, you know, I was trying to figure out through 3 quarters, it was 12-0. I'm like, who's the MVP? Do you give it to the Seahawks defensive line? Like, do you give it to the kicker? Like, the offensive, you know, like, it was hard to know. And obviously, Ken Walker continued his great game in the 4th quarter and went on and won that. But, yeah, I mean, I thought that offensive line had a chance to win it there for a little bit just because how well they were playing, especially in comparison to, you know, how struggling the Patriots offensive line was. So congratulations to Gray Zabel. I think he's got a promising future ahead of him. So certainly we'll follow his storyline, I think, with the success that he's had. Well, another football story. It happened last week. C.J. Ham officially, we say officially because we all kind of knew the way he rode off into the sunset against their Packers in the last game. But it was officially he retired from the NFL. And Kelsey Dennehy talked with his coach and found some old sound bites to tell us kind of recapping his 10-year career with the Minnesota Vikings.
C.J. Ham signed with the Minnesota Vikings in 2016 as an undrafted free agent following his graduation from Augustana University. The fullback went on to play 9 years in the league, serving as a team captain for the Final Four.
He had the respect of the locker room for his work ethic, how he showed up every day, who he was as a teammate, and obviously his physical abilities. To have the tenure that he had in the NFL with one team is so uncommon.
The leadership that he brings, I think, is just natural. He's really just a great success story. And a lot of that, I think, comes from his background and his personality and I'm sure his upbringing.
Ham was selected for 2 Pro Bowls, received 2 Walter Payton Man of the Year nominations, and was named Vikings Special Teams Player of the Year in 2018.
I don't know if you could have a better resume for doing good and doing well and running your platform as well as you can than C.J. Ham.
Augustana and Minnesota teammates and coaches alike won't remember Ham for his accolades as a football player, but who he is as a person.
You know, him being in that league, him being in the league a year more than me, you know, I kind of got that experience from him, just knowing how to carry myself in the building and how to be a pro.
Prioritizing faith, family, and football.
He lives that way 24/7, 365, and he doesn't apologize for it. And that's hard to do sometimes in the National Football League. But he stayed true to who he is and how he got there. And he's going to be a servant for the rest of his days.
In Sioux Falls, Kelsey Dennehy, KELOLAND Sports.
You know, and it's interesting watching back some of that Augustana video. You can tell which one went on to be the NFL guy. Because, I mean, watching him run by, not only is he just bigger than some of the guys, but he's running past them too, which means he's got to have a little size with the speed. And then obviously went on, you know, in a position that throughout his career saw less teams carry that position, a fullback, right? I mean, from when he first started, you know, Mike Zimmer was a running offense. But as he went on, you saw less and less fullbacks staying on rosters, and he found a way to stay there. And I truthfully think, we talked about it last week, I think it's more than just his talents that kept him on that roster.
Such a great locker room guy, because you see on his final game, the send-off that he got from the fans and from his teammates. It's not just what he can do on the football field. Incredible football player, but it's just being around him and such a positive guy and a magnet, you would say. Someone that you just are drawn to anytime you're in his presence. We've had the opportunity to see him a couple of times in Vikings training camp, and he's the same guy that he was playing Division II football right here in Sioux Falls.
Yeah, it really is. And I give a lot of credit to Jerry Olszewski. I think that's the way he runs his program. Having talked to other players that came through, and having talked to, I mean, I always love to talk with C.J. Ham, because everyone wants to talk to C.J. Ham about the Minnesota Vikings. And then we get up there to training camp and go, what do you credit your days at Augustana for doing this? And then he gets to relive college where he loved being and gets to talk about that. And so he enjoys that. He tells us that. He's like, I love when you guys come talk to me because you're the only ones that bring up when I played at Augustana. So he comes back every year and does a camp at Augustana. I sure hope that continues so we get to catch up with him once every summer. You know, but yeah, I'm intrigued to see the next step. I don't see a world where he doesn't have some sort of coaching future if he wants that. I think OJ kind of hinted at one point that he might, you know, take some time to enjoy, which he should. You know, it just being an NFL player for 10 years is a lot of work. But I think he'll coach someday if he wants to, Ian.
Yeah, he can do basically anything, and you know he's going to be successful at it. It's that work ethic, that mentality that he's had to be able to fight his way onto an NFL roster and stay there for a decade. Speaks to just the type of person that he is.
No question about it. Best of luck to C.J. Ham. So a couple of big NFL stories. We don't lead packages for NFL very often, but we certainly did there. Well, we got a big game coming up tonight, one that we've been rather excited about. Number 1, Brandon Valley versus number 3, Washington in girls hoop. We're going to preview the Brandon Valley Lynx, the top-ranked team, when we come back to Sports Zone All Access. Welcome back to Sports Zone All Access here on this Tuesday, February the 10th. Got a big game coming up tonight as Kelsey Dennehy and myself will be on the call. Ian's running around his busy night in high school hoops. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But, this is a big game, Ian. This is one, you and I helped put together the schedule at the beginning of the year, and we thought this should be a really good Tuesday night contest going on over at Washington tonight. And now here we are, Brandon Valley 13-0, Washington 12-1. That's a combined 25-1 record against number 1 and number 3. So it's what we're hoping for.
Right, and the only loss that they have, we'll get to Washington in a little bit, but it's Washington, and it was to the number 2 team in the state. Mm-hmm. So outside of the matchups 1 versus 2 or 3, undefeated so far this season. And Brandon Valley started off the season with that big win against O'Gorman in a state championship rematch and haven't dropped off at all since. First in the state in scoring offense, first in point differential, and only 4th in defense. Oh no, they're still holding opponents below 40 points a game.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy to believe that a team allowing 39 points per game is 4th in the state. But Rapid City Stevens is below that. You have a Spearfish team that's below that, so 2 West River teams, and then O'Gorman, who's number 1 in the state. The Knights really good defensively for every game this year except for one, when that was Brandon Valley, right. Game 1, where the Lynx were just on fire. So yeah, I mean, when you have those kind of numbers, you'd like to think you're going to do pretty good, especially when you have a girl named Olivia Paget, who I just might be the most talented player in the state of South Dakota for girls basketball. And that's a big thing to say. Class AA for sure. Obviously, when you start throwing in the other classes, you're throwing hundreds of girls. It's hard to keep them straight, Wagner's got a girl named Ashlyn Coble too. So I don't know if I jump to that conclusion. But in AA, she certainly might be one of the best players in the class. And right now she's leading a Brandon Valley team that's having a lot of success.
Yeah, came in last year, was a Player of the Year finalist, and now he's doing even better this year, if that's hard to believe. Brandon Valley, though, interesting thing about their schedule, tonight's game against Washington, it's their 5th straight game away from home. You see their last 5 here. The last 4, Aberdeen Central, Yankton, and the 2 Rapid City schools, all on the road for the Lynx. So they're as close to home as possible with the short drive over to Washington, but still wearing the road jerseys tonight. They'll finally get a home game later this week when they play Marshall, not even a South Dakota team. But it's been a tough stretch for Brandon Valley, and yet they've made it look pretty easy as well.
Well, yeah, and in all those road games, the big thing, Ian, they weren't anywhere nearby, right? Pierre was a home game, and then they went to Aberdeen, to Yankton, to Rapid City Central, to Rapid City Stevens. You know what I mean? When Yankton's the closest one on that schedule, and that's a 2-hour drive for them. So they have not played anywhere nearby. Now, like you said, Washington's about a 10-minute drive for them, so they like that. Then they have Marshall at home later this week, Lincoln at home later this week, Spearfish at home next week, Douglas at home next week. They go to Mitchell, and then they have Huron. So 5 of their last 6 are at home. And yeah, they're going to like that home cooking a little bit. By the way, Olivia Paget, we were just talking about her averaging 26.6 points per game this season. And there she is right on cue. I mean, she's as good as they come in Class AA. And anytime you're talking to a player that's 0.4 from scoring 27 points a game, that's incredible.
It is, and she does it on both sides of the court. Of course, her scoring is going to be what stands out the most, and you have to stop her from scoring the basketball, which nobody has been able to do this season. But defensively also, I don't know exactly what her numbers are, but she leads that pressure defense for Brandon Valley, and that causes so much havoc for the opposing offenses. Brandon Valley will turn you over and score quickly, and that's how they build up their lead for that was 8 points up to 18 and 28 and 38, and then all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, they're up 40.
Yeah, she averages 4.5 rebounds per game, almost 4 steals per game.
There you go.
And that's impressive. Those are good numbers. So, and again, 27 points per game almost. So, she's part of a really good team. One of 3 in double figures. Salter averages 12.5. Ava Kellenberger averages 10. So, this is a good Brandon Valley team. There's no other way to say it. They were good last year. And they returned a lot, pretty much everybody, and including one of the best players in the state. So when you have that, and then, the biggest thing too is coming in the year, we knew Padgett would be good. Could she play to that level? And she's done that and then some, averaging 26.5 points. I'm excited to see her play tonight. I will tell you that. And then, they're home for 5 of their next 6 games. So we'll get to see, I would guess, a lot of highlights of Miss Padgett and the Brandon Valley Lynx. So looking forward to that. Well, they got a Washington team. It's got a lot of athleticism. They also press and put a lot of pressure on you as well. We're going to preview and talk about what the Washington Warriors looked like this year when we come back to Sports Zone All Access. Welcome back to Sports Zone All Access. Well, we don't get these top 5 matchups very often. And, the thing is, we have to do preseason planning for these live games, right? It's not like we can just each week say, we're going to this game, we're going to that game. Like College Game Day can do that because they were already planning to cover that game, right? They already know they're covering that game. We only cover one a week, so we have to look ahead months in advance and try to say, okay, I think this will be a good game. I think this will be a good game. And last week, Jefferson Mitchell boys, we were right? That was a great basketball game. Right. Here we go. All right, here we go. 1 versus 3. We've talked Brandon Valley. Now let's talk Washington. Ian, the Warriors coming in. Somehow 40 points a game is 6th best defensively. I don't know how that works. But this team, very much like Brandon Valley, likes to play a lot of pressure. And it seems like when you look at their roster, they got a lot of girls all the same size. They got a lot of girls that 5'8", 9, 10 range that can get hands on balls and make it hard to pass the ball.
You have so many interchangeable parts on this Washington roster. You think of the traditional 1 through 5, but it feels like they have maybe 4 threes, and they kind of spread them out all throughout the floor and make it so difficult for the opposing offense to get into the half court, to get into a set. Both of these teams love to run and gun and turn their opponents over. That creates a lot of chaos and a lot of their offense as well.
For Washington, they have 11 players that stand between the height of 5'8" and 6'1". 11 players. So not only are their starting 5 going to average that, but then they bring girls off the bench that way. And again, they spread the floor when they play their press. And, some presses try to just trap the ball. I feel like they're trying to cut off passing lanes. You know what I mean? They're trying to, you can take all 10 seconds to get across the half court line, or if you try to pass it, good luck. We have 11 girls that are around 6 feet tall. And so, yeah, watching them against some teams, if you can't pass the ball, you are going to turn it over 25 times in the blink of an eye. And sometimes even good passes lead to turnovers because the girls can get their hands in there. So impressive that, again, they're only 6th in the state in points per game defensively, 3rd in the state in points per game offensively. You can probably guess who they're behind. Number 2, O'Gorman, and number 1, Brandon Valley. So that'll be the interesting thing. By the way, when you talk scoring margins, they're 3rd behind number 2, O'Gorman, and number 1, Brandon Valley. There's kind of a theme there in how we've seen Class AA played this year. Here's Washington's last 5. They've been really good, played 1 ranked team in that process. I think Jefferson, by the way, is a better team than we think. They're now up to 8-6. So I think that game being that close really, I think, shows something for Washington. But here's the question, Ian, as we dive into talking more about this Washington team. So many people look at this team and say, oh, well, Brandon Valley's undefeated, and O'Gorman ran past Washington the last time they played. And so people look at him as Brandon Valley's number 1 in the state, Then there's a little gap. O'Gorman's number 2 in the state. Then there's a little gap. Washington's 3. Washington's trying to change that narrative, I think, and show them we can hang with the top 2 teams and be a state champion contender.
They certainly are and can be. And the big thing is that then after Washington, there's another big drop off. So we really have 3 top teams. Washington certainly in that mix. Can they, I don't want to even say win, but can they at least be competitive and stay right in it with Brandon Valley? That'll show, hey, we're right in that mix of state championship contenders. Remember, Brandon Valley was the runner-up the last 2 years to O'Gorman. Before that, the team that won the state championship, Washington. Granted, completely different roster, but it's what Jamie Parrish has done throughout his time with the Warriors, leading a team that can be a state championship contender every single year, and this year's no different.
Yeah, and it isn't. And, what goes in it for me is, like we said, can they hang around in this game? And then how quick can they turn around? They have O'Gorman later this week, too, on Friday. So this is a big match. This is a big week for them. They get number 1 Brandon Valley, number 2 on Friday. Washington could make a monumental statement this week if there's 2 close games, or if they win one, or if somehow they were to pull out the toughest week of the season and win 2. Who knows? I'm just saying that is something to keep in mind. This is the toughest. I mean, when you talk about girls basketball teams, Brandon Valley and O'Gorman are as good as anybody in any class. Washington's going to be tested with that this weekend, and I'm excited to see how they do against it tonight. Again, 7 p.m. tip-off. Kelsey Dennehy and I will be on the call from Washington High School. You can watch it on Kelo Extra and on KELOLAND Plus. Well, we're going to preview what's coming up tonight on KELOLAND Sports when we come back. Welcome back to SportsZone All Access. Quickly wrapping up what you can see coming up tonight on KELOLAND Sports. Brandon Valley at Washington. You can both watch the game on Kelo Extra and KELOLAND Plus at 7 o'clock. And obviously we'll have the highlights of that game coming up tonight on KELOLAND Sports at 10. Harrisburg and T-Area will be playing a girls and boys doubleheader. And I think those 2 games should be competitive. And then O'Gorman is at Lincoln on the boys' side. And that should be a really good game. Again, Lincoln number 1, looking to keep that success going. Well, that'll do it for us. Thanks for tuning in to SportsZone All Access.